The island of Sodor has many beautiful places. There are fields of green, white sandy beaches, and cozy villages. All the engines love passing through the picturesque landscape. There is one place, however, that the engines avoid: the smelters. The air seemed to grow cold as the sound of snorting machines whirred all around. Worst of all, the line side was littered with rows of rusted cars, trucks, and engines. The smelters were run by two menacing diesels, Harry and Bert. They take great pleasure in their work and never miss a chance to taunt the engines.
Don't get too close to the cutter's torch, else they might just cut you up on sight.
The engines knew Sir Topham Hatt would never scrap them, but all the same, Harry and Bert's teasing chilled them to the boiler. One cold night, the diesels were idling outside the smelter's shed. They had finished their work and were ready to go home. A low mist hung over the yard, and the echoes of the smelting machines danced in the air.
"Another good day's work behind us, eh?" rumbled Harry. "Couldn't be better," oozed Bert.
Their conversation was interrupted by a familiar horn. Derek emerged from the mist, a line of trucks groaning behind him.
"Hello," greeted Harry. "What can we do for you?"
"Good evening, chaps," smiled Derek. "Special delivery for you. I've been clearing out an old mine, you see. Plenty of rusted equipment, well past its prime. Sure to keep you busy."
"And that?"
asked Bert. He motioned to the flatbed behind Derek. On it stood a small, rusty steam engine. Its cabin bunker had deteriorated so much they could see its corroding controls and firebox door.
Well, well, well," smirked Harry. "This is my kind of surprise."
"They found it tangled in the weeds. Must have been left behind when the mine closed."
"The poor thing," sighed Derek. "No engine wants to be forgotten."
"Oh, don't you fret. We'll take very good care of it, won't we? I'll show you to the fuel pump. Bert, move that old rust bucket into the shed."
Bert didn't like being bossed around, but he complied as Harry and Derek rolled away. He grumpily dragged the heavy flatbed into the glow of the smelter's shed.
"Stupid Harry," he growled. "He could have just brought this rubbish here."
As he rolled along, the old steam engine creaked and groaned. It almost sounded like laughter. Bert pulled it into place and then rolled alongside.
"Who's got the last laugh now?" he sneered. "Useless old kettle."
"Is that all I am to you?"
For the first time, he saw the front of the old engine. Its face was smudged and dirty, and its eyes weary.
I'm far from useless," wheezed the engine.
"Pah!" snorted Bert. "Another steamer in denial. You're past it. Diesels are the way forward. There's no need for you now."
"And what happens when you become outdated?"
"Oh, never gonna happen."
"I used to be just like you," sighed the engine. "I came to the little railway, thinking I was the best engine on the line. My cockiness only landed me in that mine. Never learned, did I? Got myself into an accident, you see, and I was so sure that they'd mend me. Look at me now. I thought I was invincible, but along came better, more modern engines. I got a taste of my own medicine."
She stared coldly at Bert. "You are modern, but for how long? What will happen to you when a more efficient engine is built?"
That will never happen," Bert spluttered.
"Deny it all you want," replied the engine, "but I stand before you as proof of it. Time will go on, and you will be replaced."
Bert was silent. The words sent chills through his frames.
Perhaps you should show more kindness towards engines at their end. We've done our fair share of work. we just want to go in peace, without your mockery and sneering. Now go. Go. I'd like to revel in some of that peace I'm deserving of. Bert said nothing. He was deeply affected by the engine's words, but didn't want to show it. He continued to sneer as he rolled out of the smelter's shed. Harry was waiting for him. Derek had gone, and the fog was beginning to lift.
"Where have you been?" Harry growled. "Who are you talking to in there?" "Ah, stupid old steamer," barked Bert, "trying to tell me that we'll be out of date one day."
Harry stared blankly.
How did you talk with it?"
Bert looked back. As the doors of the smelter's shed began to close, he saw no face on the engine. Rusted boiler tubes snaked from the smoke box. Bert was in disbelief. The shed door shut with an unsettling thud.
"All that exhaust has got to you," Harry cackled. "Oh, shut up," snapped Bert.
He rolled off to their shed without another word.
Bert is a different engine now. While still menacing,
He no longer taunts the steam engines with threats of scrap. He is still silent whenever he goes into the smelter shed, for he is thinking of that spectral old engine. Every shadow, every noise, reminds him of that night. I think the engine's words will follow Bert for a long time. Don't you?
Mavis enjoys her work at Farquhar Quarry. She has explored every siding and knows the quarry very well. When she was new, Mavis was encouraged to talk to the quarrymen and learn from their experience. But her driver warned her not to ask about the engine who previously worked at the quarry. "Why? What happened?" Mavis asked. "Never you mind," replied the driver firmly. "Bad things happen to those who tell the story." Mavis thought it best to remain in the dark. But there was someone who did know the story. Thomas. "Wheesh!" hissed Percy. "Don't be frightened, Thomas, it's only me." "How entertaining you are," grumbled Thomas. "Yes, I thought so. When will this tedium end?" "You always seem to get jumpy at this time of the year. You should know by now I'm not a ghost." Thomas just glared at Percy. "I'd hate to see how scared you'd really be if you really saw a ghost." "Not as scared as you if you knew what was up at Farquhar Quarry." "Thomas," interrupted Toby, "I would keep quiet if I were you." "Oh, what is it? Tell me. Go on, Thomas, tell me. Don't you dare. Oh, go on." Thomas looked at Toby. "What's the worst that could happen?" he reasoned. Long ago, before Mavis arrived, there was a little engine who used to work at Farquhar Quarry. I can't remember what he was called. He wasn't there long when I first worked on the branch line. A quarryman decided to take charge of the engine while his crew were away. He drove the engine straight down a mine shaft. The quarryman jumped clear. There was a loud rumbling sound from inside the shaft. Men ran across to help, but it was too late. The shaft collapsed and buried the little engine alive. He was never found again. But from time to time, he's been seen wandering around the quarry, looking for the quarryman who sealed his fate. Percy was terrified. Scared, smirked Thomas. Oh, no, 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 not at all, stuttered Percy, and he rolled sheepishly away. For the rest of the day, Percy couldn't help thinking about Thomas's story. It can't be real, he thought to himself, but he couldn't convince himself otherwise. Thomas felt very proud of himself. Toby was very cross. You shouldn't take any notice of Thomas. But all the same, Percy decided to talk to Mavis about it. A ghost? Well, not that I know of. I've worked here for years now and I've never seen or heard of a ghost. See, I told you not to listen to Thomas. But it sounded so real, insisted Percy. And such a horrible way to go. Oh, no wonder it would haunt the quarry after all this time. Are you sure, Mavis, there isn't a ghost? No, there's nothing at all, quivered Mavis nervously. Percy felt a little reassured, but still wasn't convinced. He would look at the shaft where the little engine disappeared. Unbeknown to Percy, Mavis was noticing strange things happening in the quarry. The trucks seemed on edge as they were slowly pushed into different places, seemingly on their own. The air grew colder and a heavy feeling seemed to linger around the yard. Something isn't right, muttered Mavis quietly. Meanwhile, Thomas was enjoying having the upper hand. Wheesh! Don't be frightened, Percy, it's only me. That night, Mavis couldn't sleep. She couldn't settle. Then, she peered through the darkness. Thomas, Percy and Toby were sleeping in the sheds. Thomas awoke. He heard a faint puffing sound in the distance. Who's there? No one replied. The next morning, Percy and Toby awoke to find that Thomas wasn't in the shed. Where did he go? Asked Percy. He must have left early, replied Toby. But Annie and Clarabelle are still in the yard. The firelighter came over and whispered something to Toby. Percy, Thomas had to leave early. You'll be taking Annie and Clarabelle today. Is Thomas all right? Yes, he's fine, don't worry. Now hurry along, don't be late. Percy did as he was told. Toby found Thomas hiding in the yard amongst the trucks. He looked very shaken up. I told you not to tell the story, sighed Toby, but you wouldn't listen. Thomas said nothing. Although you forgot one important part of the story. Whoever tells the story of the Quarry engine in full is visited by the ghost himself. You were lucky. Must be because you're an engine. Why? How come you know of the story? I was told by a quarryman. He was never heard from again. Maybe next time it would be wise to be as silent as the grave, said Toby firmly. Thomas vowed never to speak of the story again. Mavis continues her work at the quarry with no ghostly interruptions. However, she is more wary whenever she is around the mine shaft now, and for good reason. For whoever tells the story will surely receive a visit from the Quarry engine. And now that I've told you, he'll be after me next.